Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show that I do. And what I mean by that is I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my, actually just every show that I do. All right. I can't keep my shit straight sometimes, but I do that, you guys, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Sonny Sharma, good morning. Orange Shirt Gang. Tracy St. Clair, good morning as well. Tuning in. Everyone's rolling in. Corey Buchan, happy hump day, all he says. Without further ado, you guys, I have my favorite legal, non-legal expert come on the show. And I say non-legal because none of this should be taken as any advice that you should apply into your actual business today. So with that being said, I have the Armchair Attorney back on the show. Matthew Leffler, what is going on, brother?
I am so excited to be here. Nothing that I'm going to say today will establish an attorney-client relationship. If you think you need a lawyer, you probably do. Don't take legal advice from a podcast or a live stream. That's a recipe for disaster. Thanks for having me, my friend.
Oh, I love when you put that on there because it's like I just sit here and think how many people actually take what they hear on podcasts and then like don't actually seek counsel and representation and be like, I heard this lawyer say this one time that this is what I should do and I'm entitled to compensation.
Exactly. I mean, I have the paperwork on the side of the wall, but you should get your own attorney. Every state is different. There's all sorts of things to be worried about. But, you know, the thing about law and supply chains, you can't opt out of it. You're part of it forever and ever until you're off this mortal coil.
Dude, I'm sorry. Did you spell check wrong? I thought it said go Wolverines.
I love the big man. Clark, it's good to see you. I hope Ken stops by. I told him I'd be here. We'll see if he shows up.
Anybody but Ohio State. And I only say that because I know how diehard. Clark and I are going to be meeting up because I'm actually going to be in the Lou next week. So I'm going to be meeting up with Clark next week out there. Sonny Sharma says we need to get Matt an orange shirt.
It's kind of orange. I thought I was being festive.
Yeah, you are, man. You are. Zena, what is up? Good morning to you, Zena. Dude, so what's going on in your world, man? I didn't even know that you, I literally thought you were going to be in your vehicle live streaming, driving down the freeway today, because the last time I checked, you were out on the road. What's up in your world?
This is an inflection point. This is the summer before my 11-year-old goes into 6th grade. So he's finished up elementary school. My 8-year-old is going into 3rd grade. Twins are now 18 months old. So we're taking the summer pretty light this year. We're doing some traveling, doing some adventures, and having some of the most interesting conversations I've ever had in my professional career. So I'm having a great summer, and it's just getting started.
Yeah, dude, I love it. It's yeah, man, things are really starting to formulate here in this whole non-compete thing as well. Right. Like it's really kind of gaining some traction. It was funny. Like literally, I think it was like 2 weeks after you were on the show last. The former CEO of Knight Swift, they talked about how is his non-compete going to be null and void with all of this new stuff. And I'm like, that's the one spot of all spots that there should still be a non-compete, is when you have proprietary knowledge of companies and stuff like that, because that could bankrupt somebody, right? Like what stops them from, like, you know, not saying any of this is going to happen, but from like Warner or Schneider plucking them to be like, hey, what was their strategy here over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting point, and I'm glad we can start the conversation around the non-compete movement, the post-employment restrictive covenants. Just a couple weeks ago, I was actually featured in a national broadcast with a reporter named Ashanti Ford, and we kind of talked about some of the really troubled history of non-competition agreements. That was syndicated, went to a couple hundred local television stations, which is really a monumental thing for my own personal career. But to look at like senior executives, right? We often think non-competes are something that only the top of the top have. And those folks who do have them are usually paid the entire time that duration is happening. So if you have a 2-year non-compete, they are paying your salary for 2 years. That does not happen for the vast majority of American workers who have a non-compete. But again, like non-competes have really nothing to do with intellectual property. There's this really strange, and I think I understand why they do it, but there's this trying to entangle the non-compete with proprietary confidential information. We have a contract for that. It's called a non-disclosure agreement. That will control your ability to share information that you're not otherwise permitted to do. Non-competes, again, is about taking away your right as an American to do the job you've chosen in a geographic area for a period of time. And they are terrible. They're pervasive. They're pernicious. 30 million Americans have them. The FTC has a final rule banning them, but that is being litigated right now in Texas and other places across the country. And I'm excited to see people talking about these things, because post-employment restrictive covenants, or perks as I call them, are anything but perks. They are shackles that hold you in place and prevent you from doing something that you would otherwise be permitted to do absent that contract.
So what would stop a company from just changing the verbiage in their non-disclosure or their non-solicit? Like, yeah, you can go get a job, but if it's ever found out that you've communicated along these lines, we'll sue the brakes, the pants off of you.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that most companies think what they do is really, really special. And the reality is there's not much that's special. You have so much access to information. Zoom Info knows more about your customer than you do. I mean, the reality of where big data lives. So pricing information, customer contacts, that's not necessarily something that an NDA can protect, because you can go buy that today at a reasonable price from a gaggle of technology providers. Really, the stuff that they get concerned about is, where is the company trying to invest in the next 5 to 10 years? That kind of future looking thing, that's far more information competitive. It's not like Coca-Cola secret recipe or KFC's, all those herbs and spices, but there is a reality of protecting certain information. But again, nothing is new. I mean, there's the problems we experience today aren't new problems. The technology to solve them is new. But I think that it's just another way to try to make people think they're going to get sued if they go off and do something different.
Yeah, I look at more of, because, at the end of the day, man, like at this point in time in transportation, everybody has access to the exact same rate data. They all have access to the same capacity. There's nobody doing anything proprietary from a freight broker's perspective. Your technology is not fucking earth-shattering to the overwhelming majority of the shippers out there, because, again, you guys, this is just coming from somebody who actually brokers freight, and I'm not just a pretty face, although I am a pretty face. I'm not just a pretty face. No shipper has asked me what my tech stack looks like. You know what they care about? Is my shit can actually get fucking picked up and delivered on time? And are you going to communicate with me? That's kind of it, right? So it's like, and then fundamentally, when you're going on out there, because again, like as you're going through and building up relationships with shippers and everything else, if you're the bottom of the boat, the totem pole of a provider, it takes a while to crack in, because I always do this thing called asking for feedback from my customers on, hey, where does my pricing align? Am I close by? Like, where does that look like? Because again, if I'm quoting all hypothetical examples, if I'm quoting somebody $2,000 on a lane, I might be the cheapest one, but their right-hand provider who's been working with him for a couple of years might have came in at like $2,100. They're going to pay the $2,100 on that because they have more familiarity with it. So it's not always about price. So to say pricing is a competitive advantage, I will argue against that till I'm blue in the face, because I know there are customers out there who are not as concerned about price than a lot of people want to try and put out there. Yes, there are price-driven customers, but that's in every single industry that is out there. There's a quality of customer who is always looking for the cheapest price out there, no matter what. Then there's the intermediary customer who is, they're concerned a little bit about quality, but they're more concerned about the price, kind of when it breaks it down. And then there's the ones who are not concerned about price. They want the best quality product, service, or whatever it is out there. Andy Frisella breaks this down very well on his podcast a lot, the Real AF podcast, where he talks about the different classes. And then that very much bodes true inside of the transportation space. Now, no, that's not everywhere, but at the end of the day, the pricing thing, or they have access to your customers. Guess what? Every broker out there, I know who you're all fucking working with. All right. I know because I'm fucking soliciting their business. So to sit here and say that you have some proprietary roster or contact, go sign up for Seamless. All right. I use Seamless for my lead gen software. Guess what? I know who everybody is. Or if you have a LinkedIn premium subscription, guess what? You can search transportation manager, logistics manager, all of that, and find out exactly who you need to reach out to at every company.
Well, and this is why these contracts exist, because it is this democratization of technology and information. There was a time where you really couldn't buy access to these same types of products. They just didn't exist 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But today, it is so much easier to get access to these things. So what employers are trying to do is find ways to prevent what would normally be bona fide fair competition and lock in former workers. Because every great company is a combination of three things. Those three things are the same for every single company. It is people, processes, and technology. And if you can get the right person, they can help you learn the right processes, build the right processes, get the right technology. But at the end of the day, if you're missing any one of those things, you will not retain your customer, and you're probably not going to retain your talent pool either.
Yeah, I will say this because I want to put a caveat because I know somebody's going to comment, oh, our pricing is different or, you know, or whatever. You probably have the green light from your management to lose fuckloads of capital in down markets to buy revenue and market share. And then you're going to eventually ratchet up your pricing and get it back in line.
We're going to lose money in the first 10 loads, Chris, but we're going to make it up in volume. We're going to make it up with the next 100. Don't worry. It's no one's ever tried this before. We're throwing the dice. We think it's going to work. We're really confident in this strategy.
Sage Outcast says you're a badass. First person
I love Sage. If who's ever watching this right now, follow Sage on LinkedIn. I think Sage needs more people to LinkedIn, follow so he can post.
He's on Twitter.
Oh, he was on Twitter. He's on Twitter now. Yes, he's on Twitter now. I love Sage, but Sage, I'm following you, man. I want to get you more followers on LinkedIn. I'm going to do my best.
Let me know. I'll follow him. If the Armchair Attorney recommends that I follow somebody, I will follow that.
I'm making my own list. Flexport didn't include me in there, so I'll make my own.
Oh, dude, I'm not included on any list of anything out there at all. It's kind of like I actually, because I get sent these lists by people. They're like, oh, you didn't make the top podcast of this list and that list and everything else. And I'm like, oh, that sucks for them. Like, fuck it. I don't like
I'm my own list.
I am my own list. Exactly, Matt. I am my own list. It's fucking Armchair Attorney and Freight Coach against the fucking world. Put it that way.
I am Switzerland. I want to help everybody. I think this is a big enough market. There's enough problems out there. Carla. Hello, Carla.
I love Carla instead. She's the best.
Amazing. Absolutely. Now, this is the thing, man. Like what we're trying to do, all of us together are trying to safely deliver freight on time and undamaged. And it is a orchestration. It is a very difficult thing to do, even under the best circumstances. It's a feast and famine industry. Many people entered this business, let's say in the early, let's say 2020, 2021, like, oh, it'll go up forever. It's never been like that. It never will be like that. It always has a cyclical nature. And the biggest, most successful trucking companies know how to shed capacity in down markets, and they know how to ramp it back up when the market improves. That is the sign of companies that have done this before. But this is the same problem we've had for 50, 60 years. It's not changing anytime soon.
Yeah, Sage, in today's day and age, since I proudly fly the flag behind me, I'm sure I'm on a bunch of lists as well because I fly that, you know, whatever our warlords or overlords are scraping the internet and seeing that. So
I, for one, welcome our robot overlords. I will betray the humans. Do not worry. I am on the side of the machines.
Wow. Nerd. So dude, how do you think, like, because here's one thing that I'm thinking about as well is, you know, the M&A activity is going to increase because like, I've been talking about this a lot here recently, that I feel like brokers are going to be exiting the industry in mass. That's here, right. more than trucking companies. I can't prove it. This is just my gut, right? Because again, you guys, I don't have some high frequency fucking anything. I'm just a dude who actually works in the industry. But I know how brokers tendencies are. And what really solidified that for me was how ironically all of these opportunities came to light from all of these customers that I've been prospecting around DOT, excuse me, not DAT inspection week, DOT inspection week and Memorial Day. Ironically, all of these fucking hot shipments kept popping up. And it's probably because all of you motherfuckers who bid cheap rates failed on the loads. So Just saying that's why my thing is coming out.
There's a lot to unpack there. So before I talk about the M&A, let me just talk briefly about what we encounter when you have a blitz, safety break, either break safety week or national road check, whatever, thing happens. People get all
DOT overreach week, we'll call it. I'm just kidding.
Man, I'm telling you, when you have about 20% of all commercial vehicles on the highway at any given time being unsafe under any speed, any condition, because they're not maintained, that is the supply chain we live with. And many people don't realize, and I think you're one of the exceptions, but there are a lot of freight brokers out there who don't necessarily know or understand what the cost to operate a truck is. But in this business, the costs are very well defined. It is your fuel, it is your labor, it's your assets, it's your maintenance, it's your insurance, it's your tires. Those things don't move. They may move slightly here and there, but that's a pretty fixed cost you have to deal with. And when you are moving freight under, let's say, $2 an hour, you are not able to meet all of the obligations you have for your fleet. You are going to defer maintenance. You're going to make decisions that ultimately will make you drop freight or not be able to succeed. I've had a long conversation with Ken Adamo many, many months ago about should there be a minimum rate to guarantees trucking companies are able to make good on, carrying the cost of operating a fleet? And the answer is that'll never happen. We're never going to have a rate bottom where you couldn't go beneath that.
Nobody actually wants that, Matt, because what would come with that is if there's a bottom, there will be a ceiling. And then that is called socialism at that point.
I mean, this is this is what gets me so irked, Chris, is that in our industry, the minimum insurance you're required to carry is $750,000. And that was established in the Motor Care Act of 1980. This has been set for 44 years as the baseline for insurance. Most motor carriers are underinsured on the highways and not maintaining their equipment properly. And what is the answer for that? More catastrophic deaths, more consolidation, but that's a separate story. We can talk about insurance later on. But on the M&A front, I am a big believer in the trends and forces that shape every industry. And everything that I look at when it comes to M&A world is in the framework of CASE. CASE stands for connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. You walk each one. Connectivity. This is how data is shared. Think Project 44. Think Kites. Think trucker tools. The ability to break apart digital silos. That is a thing that investors are looking at. How do we better understand the connected space? And just looking at trailers, because I love trailers. There's 5 million of them, and less than a third of them have any telematics at all. Imagine what you can do if you actually measured all of the things that are out there. And then how can you better manage it? So these things are very pervasive in all parts of the business, but I'm a firm believer in CASE.
I feel like I need to shower every time you talk into the mic. I love trailers. I feel fucking
do.
Dude, we need to, if you're going to keep talking like that, I got to put a paywall up so people have to pay for the exclusive content.
I'm looking for a 53-foot drive-in, swing door. Is it air ride? Maybe. Is it spring ride? Oh, I like that trailer. Oh, you're talking about a 28-foot pup with a roll-up door?
Yeah.
Does it have a converter dolly? It does? Oh, that's my speed.
We got to stop. I'm feeling awkward now. Yeah, dude, I think that there needs to be and it always starts with the FMCSA to me. It does. I think the FMCSA has failed the industry as a whole. They have allowed a lot of this shit to go on because it's not, again, you guys, I'm an actual human being here. Criminals are gonna fucking break the law and not pay attention no matter what. Doesn't matter what bullshit. But the more regulations, it punishes the good guys 10 times more. And hold on before you go down your thing here. That's what's causing a lot of the good players to go out of business is the fact that the FMCSA is not doing their job. The DOT is not doing their job because I feel like more times than not, they're punishing the good carriers because again, you guys, criminals don't fucking care about the laws. They're letting all of those guys skate by and then they'll just reincarnate and then reincarnate and then reincarnate. And then their DOT or their VIN numbers are transferred, all of that shit. We got a great free tool, the Broker Carrier, you guys. If you guys want to go and check all of that stuff out to see if these guys, the bad actors, free on Broker Carrier. But I think like that's the thing I think we need less oversight here, but we need the governing bodies to actually do their fucking job, which is a stretch for our government. to do their job.
I mean, I'll look at the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So FMCSA, that's a regulatory body that covers safety. That's their main goal, is safety. And their real goal is, and this has been, I was at an IANA conference not too long ago, and what they said was their goal is to have zero truck fatalities in the United States. They want to have zero fatalities. That's a lofty goal that'll likely never be achieved, but that's their primary function. And when asked the questions like, where do you see yourselves when it comes to things like the self-certification of ELDs? So we have federally mandated subscription services for every single trucking company. That is an ELD. You must buy this thing. Those companies that make ELDs self-certify. They say, I filled out the form and now it works. You should go out and sell it. And the FMCSA says, yes, you filled the form, go do it. But what they're finding is every month, different ELD providers are pulled off the market because the marketing doesn't match the actual ability for it to execute. And what we end up having is all this stuff out there that is probably not engineered to be safe from malicious attacks through data services. And they're also not able to do what they functionally say they can do. The regulations as they sit today are not enforced at the level they need to be because we still see, again, 20% of commercial vehicles not being safe. But I do appreciate their goal is not really around cargo theft or cargo damage. It's really about the safety of the trucking companies and the motoring public.
I think it's more about the safety of their balance sheet by allowing everybody to fucking get an MC and,
that's deregulation, buddy. We wanted that. I mean, every problem we see today is what we intended back in 1980.
I'm a fan of the free market. I'm a fan of capitalism because capitalism actually delivers what all those other fake ones promised. But anyways, I think you're right though, man, because I think that there are a lot of tech that is out there that is not sustainable. It's got great marketing budgets, but it doesn't actually do what you're discussing there. And like, cause I had the NMFTA on cybersecurity conference here in October. They put that the NMFTA is all things cybersecurity, talking about attacks, phishing emails, all of that stuff, trying to protect it. Because again, I think that, you talked about the ELD providers that are going out of business. Mm-hmm. How many of them, just sell all of their users to somebody else and then they're not actually being monitored or they're not actually running an ELD?
Exactly. I mean, that is a fundamentally interesting question, which is who has access to that data? When you're thinking about these venture cap-backed telematics companies or ELD companies, are they actually thinking about data security in how they're going to market? Is that part of the calculus and the engineering? We don't actually know. Canada moved to a system where they do not allow self-certification. I suspect in the next couple of years, forget about the speed regulations, all their stuff the FMCSA is targeting. I think we take a very hard look at self-certification. And I think that's probably a good thing. We probably need a lot less providers of that service or that solution, knowing that they're going to be regulated more effectively, I think.
Yeah, I think speed limiters is a fucking joke as well.
Speed limiters is the new ELD. So this is my own personal theory here, but ELDs were being utilized by the mega fleets already before the mandate came in. They were the ones that were pushing for everyone else to use those because the smaller motor carriers weren't doing electronic logging devices. They were using paper. They maybe had a couple different logbooks, and speed limiters is very similar. Most mega fleets are already running speed limiters. They already have a thing where they're governing that motor. And it's just a next progression is let's force everyone else to run the same way that we do.
Of course. And again, I understand the fuel savings and like the wear and tear.
Yeah, 100%.
Again, I'm about putting out information to help somebody run a better business at the end of the day. I'm just not about more government regulations. Because here's the thing with speed limiters. What's the fucking point of a speed limit? What is the point of a speed limit on a freeway if you are going to govern how fast you can drive?
I think that you have a great question because every single state in the nation has a speed limit for motor carriers. They all have speed limits out there. And those states believe that's a safe speed. Now, the FMCSA absolutely unequivocally has the authority to do what they're contemplating. For my belief at the moment, it's going to cost likely $300 to $500 per truck to take that vehicle to a dealer and have the motor or the ECM changed to limit the speed it can go. Longer term, if you can imagine a world, Chris, where every single truck is connected to each other somehow, and that every single truck can only move at the same speed, how much more difficult is it to automate that? That's the thing I think this ultimately moves towards, is how do we use the technology to control it with the safety being the background? And then ultimately in the automation path is where things move. I think that's fundamentally where things are going to go.
I don't have my tinfoil headphones today, but you use the word control, and I think that that's ultimately what it's going for, is control at the end of the day. But
That's all it's
again,
ever been.
I don't have my tinfoil. I had it last time you were on, and I forgot it today, but
Well, when I did my piece with Ashanti Ford, and we were talking about non-competition agreements, this is the history people kind of don't think about.
Yeah.
In the old days, after the Civil War, there were a bunch of freed people, men and women all throughout the South, that could now go and do jobs. What happened was they were forced, or they opted to sign these things called wage contracts, wage agreements. And these wage agreements often contained a non-compete. And the non-compete basically said, you can work for me, but if you leave my employ, you can't work anywhere around here. You're going to have to move. That was the initial push of non-competes in the US. And on the non-solicitation path, it wasn't about you soliciting customers or former employees. The non-solicitation path was other companies could not come to your place and solicit your people to come work for higher wages. It was all about control. And most of what we see in this growth of technology and automation is safety, which is the primary driver. And then this aspect of control, driver-facing cameras, rear-facing cameras, forward-facing cameras, collision avoidance systems, and just more and more tech creeping into that driver who thought they were getting freedom, but in reality, we're getting forced dispatch with a truck that can only go 68 miles an hour.
Yeah, I think that you just connected a lot of dots for a lot of individuals that are out there, Matt. Is it the guise of safety to eventually look to automate and autonomous the entire industry, which I think that that's ultimately what, again, tinfoil headphones thing. I think that that's ultimately what they're trying to do with that, with AI. I think that there's, again, I'm obviously anybody who watches the show, I'm not a fan of government regulation at all. I'm not the fan of the government telling me what to do or think or anything like that. But some of this shit's going to go too far. I mean, and a lot of my insight comes from, I actually read, and I read Elon Musk's book earlier this year, and he broke it down eloquently in that book about what this could turn into. And, that's my whole thing is I'm about technology, but I'm not about replacing people, because what else are they going to do?
There's a great quote that I heard when I was attending Manifest earlier this year. It was a senior executive at DHL, and she was talking about how they experience between 40 and 70% churn of their warehouse workers every single year. And the phrase that she used was so telling. She said, "We are looking to reduce our dependency on labor." Reduce our dependency on labor. Automate. Now, you and I have talked this before, but when AB 5 came out, which was this taking a law in California, making it into a statute, FedEx Ground and Amazon weren't fighting it, because FedEx Ground had been doing owner operators in that model for 40 years. That law did not impact them. But my belief fundamentally is that automation will finish the work of deregulation back in 1980. It will say the innovation of independent contractor was, I'm going to make you your own business. You're going to take on all the risk. I get to keep my main profit, and you get to take on all this other stuff. And if I don't like the way you perform, I fire you with no consequence. That was what the whole method of independent contractors were back in the 80s and 90s and today. But if you can do it with a robot, you have so much more ability to control the experience and to ultimately reduce what you spend on transportation. And does that mean everyone makes a lot more money? Probably not. It probably means these big companies make even more money, which is what happens in the nature of this kind of business.
Matt, I don't have time to rebuttal all of that. Because your underlying message, I agree with it entirely. Yeah. Right. I think that at the end of the day, what they're going to do, and I am not calling this a low skilled labor job at all, because I've worked in warehouses. I've worked blue collar jobs the overwhelming majority of my life. But that is what a lot of these string pullers view it as, is you're just all replaceable to them. I'm vehemently against autonomous overriding the workforce. I am, because people need jobs, people need purpose. And if they don't have jobs, if they don't have purpose, reckless behaviors start to increase. All right.
I mean, this is where we get to we won't talk about universal basic income, but I will say this.
Fucking get me started on
everybody who reads we need right now is people who are educated in the topics that are happening. What happens the next 5 or 10 years is preceded upon what we do now. We can help shape the supply chain. We can help shape how regulators view the future. But as people look at news articles, they look at new things happening, look for these trends: connected, autonomous, shared, electric. Connected is the data being shared. Autonomous is the removal of the human element. Shared is having access to something, but not necessarily having to own it. Renting, leasing. We think of things like VHub or Repower or Coop. How do I get access to something that I need, but don't actually need to own myself? And then electric. Electric is not necessarily, we're just looking at EV. It's non-diesel powertrains. Diesel is a very dirty fuel. It requires a ton of after treatment in order for it to meet the modern day compliance regulations from the EPA and others. And if you understand those trends, everything that you see makes complete sense. All of it fits together because it is a mosaic of a bunch of different threads that are all one continuous supply web that started very, very long time ago.
So Matt will be back on, and we're going to discuss that topic in depth the next time you're on the show, because
absolutely,
I would love to break that down. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for today. Your boy's got to get back to slanging some fucking freight. And I will be back tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network. If you guys are feeling an extra frisky, drop your boy a 5-star rating on iTunes and Spotify. It helps us reach more and more people. That will be it. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Woo!